Hello, my YouTube friends, and welcome to beautiful Dubrovnik, Croatia. It really is amazing here. You can barely see in the top there the ocean and everything else. Today, we're going to talk about Tesla's melt up continuing, a little bit about Boeing, and some other things I see going on in the market. I'll also probably blab a little bit about the trip and everything else. You can see how gorgeous it is here. The camera doesn't even really do it justice, but it really is a great city. We actually extended. We were only staying 3 days. Anyway, stick around. The video should be pretty good. Good morning. My name is Adam Kahn, and this is Investing with Adam K. Today is Tuesday, July 9th. I hope you're all doing well. Sorry it's been so long since I've been posting. I've actually had a tough time. The internet's been slow. I'm hoping I can get this one posted. To be perfectly honest, though, I'm a little worried it's going to take a few days to get it up simply because the internet's so slow here and everything else that it takes a really long time to download it. But I can't tell you how beautiful it is here. We did a boat tour yesterday around the islands, saw the blue caves, and my son went swimming and went to some sandy beach and whatever else. Super cool. We were only staying 3 days. We've extended it another 5 days because it's so nice. So maybe we'll do some other videos and everything else. So I'm going to change to an area where I can sit and chat a bit, and we'll go from there. Great week in equities for those of you who haven't been or have been watching. Amazon seems to be approaching 200. Apple seems to be continuing along. I think it secured above 225. Nvidia had a nice big pullback, but it seems to have bottomed out and seems to be reversing the other direction. Google even seems to be testing around 190. Microsoft keeps chugging along. It's a pretty interesting dynamic watching these stocks continue higher and continuing to grow. All the gloom and doomers out there talking about how awful things are and how we're going to have this big collapse. I just don't see it coming. What I see is a typical bull market having some scary pullbacks that are very short lived that catch themselves. The stocks continuing higher slowly to not draw people in, make them continue to say how overpriced things are. Even Nvidia, the more people talk about how overpriced it is, simply because the stock price is higher than it used to be, not for any real fundamental reason of why they think it's too expensive. It just seems, quote unquote, too expensive to them. The earnings are going higher and the stock's doing great. But the more that people think it's overpriced and too expensive, the more that I think it's going to continue until everybody just gives up and throws their hands in the air and thinks, oh my God, it's just going higher, and they pile in, and then you'll see a real melt up. I think the market continues to chug along the way it has. Even the housing market that's really confusing. It's very localized. So you're going to see pockets that have corrections that got overbought with the higher interest rate and the higher prices, and you'll see more inventory come to the market and it'll soften, potentially have maybe a 5, 10, maybe even a 15 or 20% pullback, but maybe not. And then you'll see other areas that'll continue to chug along and do just fine. I live in Las Vegas, and the city has grown so much. I don't see us having any monstrous pullback. I really don't. We've added F1, we've added the football team, the Raiders, we have the new hockey team still. We're adding the Sphere just opened up. And there's so many things that are continuing to open and grow the city. And then you have all the people coming in from California who A, don't love the politics anymore, and B, they don't love the taxes and the high cost of living there. So they're slowly siphoning over to Vegas for a lower cost of living, and in my mind, a better life as well. You know, I, I, I don't know how long that'll continue, but I think it's got a long way to go because the prices in California seem to be stable and continuing higher on top of it. And when I look at how expensive it is to live there versus how expensive it is to live in Las Vegas, I see a huge value in moving to Vegas. Mark Wahlberg is actually opening up a Hollywood Studios that will take some time, obviously. But my thought is for the actors and actresses that end up moving to Las Vegas, the cost of living versus living in LA, it's just night and day, and they'll be able to change their lives by moving if they want to do that. We moved to Las Vegas in 2005, and the reason I picked Las Vegas is I thought it was super undervalued. Even as I've been traveling, when I tell people I live in Las Vegas, the reaction is incredible. People from all over the world have heard of Las Vegas. They want to visit it. It's as well known as New York or LA or things like that. And I lived in Chicago for a long time, and when I tell people I'm from Chicago, they start asking, where is that in the US? So that's part of what I think gives Las Vegas the ability to continue to grow is how many people actually want to go there. I think COVID changed a lot of the vacation destinations to become places that people want to live, and is part of what's driven those prices up as quickly as it has. Now, of course, like I said, some of them are going to have pullbacks, but you have to understand your local market and be realistic about it. And it also is going to depend on the price range of the houses you're looking at. I think if you're looking at any house under 500,000 in the Las Vegas area, I don't see any huge pullback coming, and there's tons of demand and tons of people fighting for those homes. Once you push into the higher range, maybe there's some opportunity there, but it's still a tough market where I don't see a ton of big pullback or anything like that. And if you haven't seen, Tesla continues to melt up. I think it'll slow down here now that it's gotten around $250 a share. But boy, it really shot up from somewhere around $170 a share to $250 in a very short amount of time. And I think the move is still higher. I don't think you're going to have any huge correction. And if you do see a correction, I think it's finally a buying opportunity. It's what I was saying before. The bad news was coming out. They were talking about Elon Musk and that package of his for, his what they call it. Sorry, I'm having a brain clot. Um, but essentially, his salary and his bonus structure for his compensation, and there was the vote and everything else, and then all of his distraction with X as they call it now, but I still don't think of it as that. I still think of it as Twitter. Um, but all of that distraction, all that negative news, and the lack of sales, and the profits dropping and everything else seem to get people off track that it's still a great company. Create an opportunity to buy it at a discounted price. Now that the trend seems to be going in the opposite direction, I think the trend continues in the opposite direction. I don't think it just automatically reverses unless you have more bad news that causes a legitimate correction. And for those of you who've been watching Boeing with me, you've seen it again, retest that area around $170 a share. It actually traded above $190 a share yesterday before pulling back. I think it closed around $185. Still in this range. We'll see which way it breaks out, but I think most of the bad news is out. They now had another thing come out about them being investigated about the airbags in the planes. I'm not sure who's pushing the negative rhetoric, but it sure seems like they're trying to come up with anything negative they can to talk about the company. And I think that's good in terms of the valuation because somebody's buying the stock. If it was so terrible, the stock would be continuing lower. Now, I would be careful if it gets below maybe $165 a share. At that point, it's really breached its lows and seems to be going lower, and there is some bad news out there. And I think they've decided they may plead guilty on some of the things that they were being charged with. But in the meantime, if it holds those levels, same thing. Once the news subsides, the stock's going to start reversing in the up direction, and all the sellers will have been exhausted. And no matter what your thoughts on or about Boeing is, once the sellers are exhausted and the stock starts going higher, there isn't selling pressure to push it back down. That's why they start going higher. It is, part of this stuff is emotions and supply and demand as well as valuation. And there's this tug of war between the sellers and buyers. When a lot of sellers are coming in, there's a lot of pressure to keep it lower. When they're finally finished, even when things slow down, just the natural progression of automatic order flow and things going into mutual funds and whatever else that are going to continue to purchase shares of stock, that ends up just pushing a company higher. So what you'll see is, since there's no more sellers, it'll drift up. Eventually, it'll get a little too high. You'll see a panic sell down, but it'll happen really quick before it catches a higher bottom and continues up again. Anyway, I'm trying to keep it short. We're getting kicked out of one Airbnb, sent to another one, so we got to get moving and head over to maybe the Hilton to go get some coffee and wait until the other one's going to let us in. But if you haven't already, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, make some comments. Let me know what you guys think of the markets. Let me know what you think of Dubrovnik if you've ever been here, or any suggestions you have, because we're going to be here a few more days. Thanks. Have a good one.